Mark Tanner, who lives in Lancaster and who I know, mentioned to me about 8 weeks ago that he had he'd read David's blogs and just felt that they explained the financial crisis so clearly and so accessibly that David's blog should be turned into a book. And so that's what they did, and that's what they were doing. 2 months ago it was in its very first draft form, and Mark asked me to have a look. I relished the opportunity to read anything that I thought might make the banking crisis a little bit more accessible than the information that I'd read to date. I mean, I'd almost started throwing things at the television when Robert Preston was on Newsnight, and that's Stephanie Flanders. I just feel so talked down to, and they take so long to explain nothing to us. Mark put the draft of the book through my door one Saturday afternoon, and I picked it up actually as I was going to bed. Just before I was going to bed, started reading it about 10 o'clock, and I didn't put it down till 3 o'clock in the morning. And that's the first that I've ever been riveted by anything to do with finance. So I just hope that this evening you find David's talk at least half as entertaining as I found the book, in terms of being illuminating about the issue, and I know you'll have a good evening. Just want to say thanks to David. He lives in Scarborough. He's come all the way over this morning. He's already done 2 talks today that have been very well attended. So thanks very much, David, and over to you. Big hand for David, please.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I think the first thing I should explain is why I wrote the book, because it's not as if the world needs another one, and there are already quite a number of books about the financial crisis, and I'm not an economist. And the reason I wrote the book is really quite simple. Like you, 2007, I started hearing things on the radio, on the news, reading in the newspaper. And I'm reading along and hearing about large subprime lenders going bust. And I thought, what the heck is a subprime lender? And as I started to read, there was just something about what I was being told which just didn't seem right, just didn't feel right. So I started doing what Mark and I always do. I thought, right, I'm just going to research this. So what I did is I went to the websites where traders talk to each other. There are such places, they're intensely boring. Most of what gets said is little electronic flashes where someone says, JPM put July 5th, 2.4, question mark. Someone writes back and says, stop out at 2.3. To this day, I still don't really know what it means. But in between that, these people discuss what they think is going on in the economy. And the more I read, the more I thought, this is making some sense. And these people are awful. They are Budweiser drinking, steak chewing, bomb them back to the Stone Age, America über alles kind of people. Locked in a lift with them, only one of us would come out. And so the fact that I thought I have no reason to like anything these people say made me feel intrigued at the fact that it was making sense. And the more I read, the more sense it made. And as things went along, and they said, well, if they do this, this is going to happen. And 2 weeks later it would. And at the same time, I'm reading the newspapers and listening to the radio and watching Channel 4 News and BBC, and the two versions of what was happening were just getting further and further and further apart. So in the media, I was hearing a lockstep uniformity of message. Everyone seemed to be repeating the same message. It's a liquidity crisis. Banks are having a liquidity crisis. It's a liquidity crisis, by the way. What do you think? Well, I think it's a liquidity crisis. And meanwhile, the traders, who their analysis has to be honest. It cannot be clouded by what they would like to be true given their political leanings, because they're going to take their house and bet it the next day. So if they're deluding themselves, they'll go bankrupt and they won't be a trader for very long. So what they were saying was what they really thought was the truth. And it wasn't anything like what I was hearing. I mean, not just a little bit different, not a difference of shading, just red over here and blue over here, just not similar at all. And once I realised that, I realised, well, what occurred to me, I thought, however serious this financial crisis is, and they left me, and no doubt this was a very serious crisis, they were talking about a Mad Max future, Depression 2.0. And this was back in late 2007, early 2008, a long time. I realised, well, however serious the financial crisis is, this is a really serious democratic crisis. And as it went along, that feeling was the one that drove me on, because I thought, do we live in a democracy? If we do, we should be hearing this debate. There should be a debate about what kind of crisis is it? What is its cause? Given what its causes really might be, what are the policies we should be pursuing? Now, maybe I missed it. Did you hear all of this? Did you hear a big debate in the papers? Did you hear different voices on the television? Because I didn't. I heard a uniformity of opinion. And nothing of this other debate was there. And yet, massive decisions have been made on our part. We've put up £1.4 trillion. We haven't spent that much, but that's how much we've committed to the bailout, according to the government's own figures of 4.5 months ago. No one asked me. I never heard a debate about what we were giving it to, or what the pros and cons. So, are we living in a democracy? Or are we just kind of, have we have the dress-up version? You know, we get to play democracy, we get to put its clothes on and pretend that we are, but its radical content has been taken away. Because if we're not being given a chance to really debate and hear the different sides, then I don't think we do have democracy. And that was what worried me.